Good afternoon. I'm Seema Kumar. I'm the CEO of Cure, and I want to welcome you to Cure, to the Cure ecosystem, and to this gorgeous, gorgeous rooftop. And by the way, we ordered some sunshine for you all. You know, it was cloudy and rainy for the past couple days, and so here we are, we have sunshine. So today is a really incredible milestone for Cure and for me personally. Almost a year ago, we came up with this idea to launch the Cure Innovation Health AI for Good Challenge. And it was just sort of something we put together on a couple of slides, an idea, and here we are today, making it a reality and announcing the winners. So it's the first ever inaugural Cure Xchange Innovation Challenge, and which you are all a part of, and the whole ecosystem is a part of it. And we're a leading healthcare innovator. We are a convener. We are Cure, period. That's why you'll see a period next to our logo, because our mission is very simple, and that is to cure, period. And we do this ecosystem building by bringing together people from different disciplines, people from different sectors, people across the world, in a mission to advance healthcare and public and private sectors, and all across the world. So we have great conversations, but conversations are just the beginning. And we always want to do something, have impact. And so when we realized that AI was all the buzz, and many people were thinking about AI as being the next best thing, and it's going to transform the world, it's going to transform the healthcare. But then there was a whole other cadre of people, with valid concerns about AI. And so we said, AI can be used for good and transform the landscape of healthcare. And so here we are on this incredible day. And, we want to make sure that you all get a chance to meet the finalists and our winners of our challenge. But before we go there, what I want to do is I want to bring up our chief guest, our keynote speaker, John Mattison. John is the Assistant Medical Director and Chief Medical Information Officer at Kaiser Permanente. Because I had to read that out, because you're so many different things, right? You're an evolutionary biologist, you're a physician, you are sort of like one of the first people who thought about AI, you're an investor in many different companies, you incubate a lot of companies. You're so much more than what your title says. So we're looking forward to your talk. Come on.
Thank you so much for such a kind introduction. And I was CMIO at Kaiser Permanente for a few decades, but I'm now have left the mothership, and which allows me to do a lot more consulting in the AI space. So forgive me, apologies in advance. I'm going to cram 18 years of experience with AI into 10 or 15 minutes. And so I'm going to go through some concepts very quickly, some of which key off of what Seema just explained, that the great opportunity and the great peril. Okay, so how many of you have heard what the quintuple aim is? Just quick show of hands. Okay, triple aim, anybody heard of the triple aim? Okay, so I want to cover a few relevant quotes first, and then I'm going to come back to the triple aim and how we can use it as a goalpost for how we think about deploying AI in healthcare to balance between the promise and the peril of AI. So the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, has said AI is perhaps the most transformational technology of our time, and healthcare is perhaps AI's most pressing application. I could not agree more. Ray Kurzweil, super inventor, amazing futurist, said artificial generalized intelligence will be achieved prior to 2029. Everybody thought he was a fool when he said that 10, 20 years ago, and now everyone else is converging on the same date as we get closer to it. And by 2045, AGI will be 1 million times smarter than humans, basically a godlike technology. E.O. Wilson, one of my heroes, invented the field of sociobiology at Harvard, wrote, "We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And it is terrifically dangerous, and it's now approaching a point of crisis overall." And then George Hinton, who's referred to as the godfather of AI, left Google to sound the alarm, saying, "By far the greatest danger of AI is that people conclude too early that they understand it." And that's a very insightful statement about where we are. So I'm a huge advocate of deploying AI as quickly as we can, as safely as we can by mitigating the risks and perils associated with it. So there's further acceleration of AI happening today with whole new architectures that have not made it into the public zeitgeist yet. But there are now multiple large language models, so-called LLMs, that have agents representing them. They're having conversations. So instead of typing into or speaking into ChatGPT and getting an answer from one LLM with confabulation and whatever else, there are architectures that allow different LLMs to have agents that have dialogues and conversations. And one of the earliest findings of those dialogues is that they had to cut them off after a certain period of time because they wouldn't stop talking to each other. So this is the Gartner hype cycle, which refers to the introduction of new technologies that initially people have inflated expectations and they go into a trough of disillusionment, and then finally a plateau of productivity. So the relevance of this to AI is that we're in the third hype cycle. There's been 2 AI winners where lots of promise and lots of show and no go. We're in the third cycle, but the trough of disillusionment is basically over, and the plateau of productivity is going to go way beyond those expectations. And Roy Amaro, who was head of the Institute for the Future, famously said, futurists tend to overestimate how quickly a new technology will transform society, and they underestimate how big the ultimate impact will be. And there is no one who's been more convinced longer than I have that this is going to absolutely revolutionize everything in our lives, absolutely everything. So the complexity of the human condition calls out a necessity to use AI both to understand how the human body functions and works, as well as how to optimize our health. So I've constructed sort of a novel conceptual model of how to think about this. And I like to think of biomimicry, and in the world of the internet, it's basically an aggregation of intranets and different sources. And so there's a human biologic internet comprised of multiple biologic intranets. The genome, the transcriptome, the epigenetic memory that comes from our experience manifest as methylation, histones, telomeres, et cetera. The brain, the original sort of human intranet. The neuroendocrine axis, how our hormones are regulated for homeostasis. The microbiome, the bacteria, the viruses, and the fungi in our gut, which have profound influence on health and the evolution of cancer, as an example. The immunome, we're just barely scratching the surface of the immunome now. And then the autonomic nervous system, up until very recently, has been intractable black box. And I'm working with a team at UC San Diego that's developed a non-invasive sensor for the vagal nerve, and it is mind-blowing what they're able to disambiguate with real-time high-performance computing, real-time AI looking at the signals and determining where and what kind of infection somebody has many, many hours before any other tool can detect sepsis. And detecting sepsis early is life-saving. So each of these biologic intranets is tightly connected to the other, composing the human biologic internet. And there are emerging constructs of pairwise relationships between them. We know for example, the microbiome conditions the immune system massively. We know that what we eat conditions the microbiome. So Larry Smarr famously said, you need to farm your microbiome by what you eat to condition your immunity. And the work at UCSD has shown that if you look at what Emmanuel Lehrman, the physician researcher, has called the autonomic immune configuration, he can predict very accurately how someone's going to respond to an infectious threat based upon the intersection of the autonomic nervous system set points and the immune system profile. So what are the implications of this complexity? So right now, almost all implementations are unimodal. That is, they look at one set of data and optimize for it, whether it's free text or images. But there's basically 2 different axes in the multimodality that we need to get to generalized AI. So the first are all the omics, the genomics, the proteomics, the metabolomics, the exposomics, the socialomics, all of our behaviors. The second one is across the 4 basic data types, which can be present in each of those other omics, with text, images, discrete data, and streaming data. So currently, those can be managed separately and then aggregated, but to operate on them at scale across all those dimensions is one of the key challenges, and a lot of people are working at that right now. So an example of one of the monomodal discoveries recently, 275 million new human genetic variants have been discovered in the All of Us study. And that's fabulous, but until we know the correlation with the microbiome and the immune system and so forth, we don't really understand what the impact of those variants are. So we need multimodality to achieve higher accuracy and much more precise understanding needed for truly personalized medicine. And we talk about health equity. We need to really understand the whole person to be able to adapt our therapeutic options to the individual. So what are some of the early successes in healthcare? Breast cancer screening, early, better than any radiologist. How many radiologists have read 3 million mammograms? 0. AI, it's very easy to read. You have? It feels like 3 million. So if earlier diagnosis means earlier therapy means earlier cures. That's huge. We have virtual scribes that are going to unburden the burned out healthcare team that's sitting there trying to enter all their data through a keyboard. We have medical chatbots that are trained in every language and every dialect so that they can have a discussion, a medical discussion relevant to each individual in their native tongue and in their native dialect. That's huge. These already are beginning to flourish. We have novel drug discovery already progressing into clinical trials where a candidate drug for a candidate target was identified using AI, now in clinical trials. We have early detection of sepsis from vagal nerve sensors, as I mentioned earlier. So one of the challenges is what's called the reproducibility crisis. So this has been long known in science, long before AI came along, and it's caused a lot of hand-wringing because people publish papers that look really promising and no other lab can replicate it. There's lots of reasons for that. But now you add AI on top of that, and you don't know what the training data set was necessarily. You don't know the generalizability of that training data set. You don't know what minority representation there is, disadvantaged populations. And so we're now seeing the reproducibility crisis in science propagating further through the use of AI and all the additional unknowns associated with that. So here's an example. Karan Singh is the chief of artificial intelligence at the medical school at UC San Diego, has published a ton of just awesome studies. But he looked at validating a general ward deterioration index. So if you have people on the floor in the hospital and they start to deteriorate, early intervention keeps them out of crashing and going to the ICU in diversely different health systems. And what he found is the benefit of exactly the same system in different institutions, different hospitals in the same institution led to very different results. So that's just an illustration of this problem. It's tractable, but at the moment, it's not solved. Now back to sort of the goalpost of what we need to do to create equitable, effective, safe AI. The quintuple aim that came out of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement has really been the guidepost for healthcare since it was created in 2007, with the 3 aspects of patient experience, better outcomes, and lower costs. And in 2014, when the recognition of physician burnout and healthcare team burnout was really brewing, they added a 4th, the clinician well-being, and then as recently as 2021, they added health equity as a goal. And one of our goals here at Cure has been to ensure that we pay close attention to health equity. So how do we map what is on the horizon for AI in healthcare against those goals? And honestly, I could write 5 pages about each one of these, about projects underway today to address each of these. So I'm going to just hit a few highlights. Improve patient experience. So better matching of chatbots to the cultural context and the health literacy, more efficient scheduling and navigation through hybrid digital and physical healthcare teams and healthcare support, better access due to efficiencies in clinical, administrative, and billing workflows. There are people working on each of these. The better outcomes, earlier detection of anything leads to a better outcome, as long as there's a therapy, something you can do about it. So diagnosis and therapy will systematically lead to more cures, and yes, cures is capitalized for a reason, because this is the cure floor. And so we need to shift the entire pre-authorization process. So there's a lot of consternation and argument in Congress right now around how pre-authorization has become a deliberate barrier to care as opposed to a guide to how to get the right care to the right person at the right time. So what we need to do is just move that forward. We should be looking, rather than getting pre-authorization to do something, having the clinical decision support that says, in this circumstance with this patient, this is indicated, just do it. Don't wait for someone to say, yes, doctor, that's okay. It's a very unsatisfying process the way it exists today. The third is anytime you diagnose earlier, treat earlier, and cure, you're dramatically reducing costs. So that's across the board. Clinician well-being, using AI, and this is my dream. This has not been, I have not seen an implementation of this. If anybody has, please let me know. I'm looking for it. But using AI in tandem with modern visualization tools so that when we see someone who has an array of diseases and disease processes, and we want to create a care plan that works for them, we need to understand their values and their objectives, and we need to condition the options for that individual based upon their hierarchy of values and objectives. And so putting that into a visualization tool without having to go through an onerous chart search in every single patient encounter, and being able to then share in the process of selection which option do you want to go with at this point in your life. And when the patient participates in that decision process, they're more invested in it. Their compliance is better. This is well known. So the clinician well-being comes from the fact that the satisfaction a patient has derives mostly from the discussion of the plan of care, for which there's usually not enough time, not enough resources. If we can take the work necessary to reach that plan of care, to reach the options, to discuss with the patient, to get them invested in the decision, the physician is going to have time back to have longer discussions about matching the option to the individual and about engendering compliance through their buy-in, through participating in the decision process. The last one is health equity. That is one of our top North Stars here at Cure. And the simplest way to address that is ensuring that training data sets and applications are equitable by design. So there's security by design. There's lots of different manifestations of how you do this, but we need to consider that at every decision point. So quickly on future opportunities, and then I'm going to talk about my two holy grails. So each person with a health record and wearables is going to be able to generate their own personal LLM. Foundational models for LLMs like ChatGPT, like Llama and others, will be localized with knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs are where you represent causal relationships between different parameters in the human biology, so that you're not relying on correlation. You are guided by causation built into the knowledge graph. Then we'll be able to expose our own personal LLMs to a conversation between various LLM agents or whatever the next generation. The generations are happening every 6 months now in this space, which will almost certainly enhance the precision, the reliability, and the value of the output. And then local data feeds for local training, along with the application of those knowledge graphs, are currently helping reduce the risk of confabulation. So large language models have a big problem still with confabulation, making stuff up. And so the more we can train it on local data in those institutions I mentioned earlier that Dr. Karan Singh studied, where they use exactly the same tool and got radically different results, training it on local data for each of those hospitals will be one of the keys to overcoming that, in addition to a knowledge graph. There's really, I put one holy grail, but there's really a second one as well. But the first holy grail in my mind is health equity by design. So at every decision point in the process, how do we ensure that this doesn't disaffect an individual population because not enough of data representing them is included in the training process to mitigate risks of adverse discrimination? Cure has placed this imperative at the top of the world-class selection process. I got to tell you, I have worked with incubators and accelerators all around the world, Israel, Canada, China, and elsewhere. And I have never seen such a efficient, prolific process as what Seema and team put together here to select the winners you're about to meet. So with that, let me yield the podium and celebrate the winners of the competition. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you. That was really, really wonderful. Well, John was one of many of our members of our external advisory board, very esteemed external advisory board. And many of them are here today in the audience, and some of them couldn't make it, but they're all probably watching. So I just want everybody to stand, those of you who are members of the external advisory board, Gustavo, Rick, John, Jillian. Thank you. Thank you all. And of course, we had many partners along the way. One big one was MIT Solve, and they were really great partners with us in making this a very rigorous process. And speaking of rigorous process, I mean, honestly, I didn't know what to expect when we kind of threw this out in the open, and just completely amazed and surprised. There were 664 odd people who actually attempted to apply to this challenge, and then 109 or 10 bona fide applications. And then this advisory board spent hours in rigorous deliberations, whittling it down to finally, ending up with our finalists, which we announced. So, and I also want to thank Amazon Web Services for all of their support. Also, NVIDIA and Thermo Fisher, who are all supporting us in this journey. So let me get to the real pièce de résistance of the day today, and the excitement that we all have. So before we announce the winners and before our guest of honor, Dr. Chelsea Clinton, arrives here, I want to make sure that everybody gets a deep appreciation for what these extraordinary companies, innovators are doing. And as John said, we placed equity, right up there. So we said, how do you leverage AI for good in healthcare responsibly and equitably? And all of these people just completely rose to the challenge. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the finalist video. The finalist video is sort of a compilation that gives you an overview of what all of them actually submitted. We are so pleased to introduce you to the 10 finalist teams that have made it to the final round of our Innovation Challenge. These are extraordinary teams working on great innovations that are going to change the world by leveraging AI for good in healthcare.
Xchange Challenge finalist, Every Cure.
So our company is building an artificial intelligence platform that's first based on compiling all the world's biomedical knowledge that is relevant for identifying drug repurposing opportunities. The drugs that we currently have in society are not fully utilized to treat every disease that they possibly can. And so we use artificial intelligence to find those new uses for the existing drugs to treat diseases that don't yet have treatments yet.
Xchange Challenge finalist, ThriveLink.
At ThriveLink, formerly Nutrable, we build voice-activated AI social workers that enroll families into vital programs like health insurance, housing assistance, and transportation programs. We do this because over 130 million families and patients, that's 54% of all adults, struggle from literacy barriers that prohibit them from being able to access these programs that can help them live more healthful lives.
Xchange Challenge finalist, BioCurie.
I founded BioCurie with Professor Richard Bratz from MIT because we had the vision of solving one of the biggest challenges in cell and gene therapy using the technology that we developed called mechanistic AI that allows us to turn data into actionable knowledge to improve the production of cell and gene therapies.
Xchange Challenge finalist, Open Health.
At Open Health, we've built one AI platform to power all community-based care workflows. We will do that by taking data from different stakeholders, including the community health centers, the primary care health centers, payers, and any other third-party sources of data, integrated into one platform. And through that, we'll be able to deliver care.
Xchange Challenge finalist, Oatmeal Health.
Oatmeal Health is a unique hybrid of AI, clinical support, and technology in a front that we actually provide radiology and primary care services at the point of care in the primary care setting. And we've built a program around preventative screenings for early detection, meaning that we actually proactively target the patients' populations that need it most.
Xchange Challenge finalist, Deep Echo.
So DPHIL's mission is really to make quality feature ultrasound more affordable, more accessible, so that any patient, wherever they are, whatever their economical situation is, can benefit from a quality examination and lower their mortality rates and have a better pregnancy outcome.
Xchange Challenge finalist, Alaji AI.
We are building an AI assistant to help people who are fighting cancer, and we are specifically focusing on complex and rare cases. Cancer is an evolving system. It's trying to evade the immune system, and then our therapeutic strategies to keep growing. So I thought, we maybe should be developing algorithms.
Xchange Challenge finalist, Kala Cares.
So we're a digital health technology and advocacy startup that has one mission, which is to prevent kidney failure one family at a time. Natural AI is a predictive algorithm to detect the time to dialysis for people with advanced chronic kidney disease.
Big round of applause for all of them. Thank you. So we are actually going to move into our quick TED Talks. But before I do that, I see somebody in the back of the room who I want to recognize for a minute, and that is Jim Flynn. He is the managing partner of Deerfield, and he is also founder of Cure, this beautiful building and this innovation campus that you're all here today, and that the winners of our challenge will get to enjoy and be residents in for a year. Thank you, Jim, for making this dream a reality. So with that, let me actually call on stage the first video, Alaji AI.
Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to start with thanking everyone who made this possible. Seema Kumar, the Cure team, and the advisory panel, and of course, MIT Solve. We're very thrilled to be among the winners of this very, very tough competition. And we are extremely pleased that you believe in our solution. Alagi.ai is building an AI assistant for molecular tumor boards, cancer patients, and their relatives. And I think this is a global challenge, and one that is really important to tackle globally. So we're very, very excited to expand in the North American market and be based in New York City. I started working on Alagi.ai, or rather thinking about this idea, a long time ago, in 2013, when someone I love was fighting a complex cancer and was unable to find answers to even very, very basic questions about their disease progression, where it's coming from, and most importantly, where it was going. But then I was developing algorithms to analyze and reconstruct evolving systems. And that's exactly what cancer is, a population of cells evolving inside the patient, trying to fool the patient's immune system or our therapeutic approaches. So it's a little bit like a game between cancer cells and our immune system, supported by therapeutic options. So we've been developing approaches to try and win this game. And winning this game means to drive cancer cell populations away from resistant genotypes. Because ultimately, this is what is the most dangerous, when cells evolve the ability to escape all available treatment options. So rather than targeting a particular time shot in cancer progression and evolution, we are targeting the disease trajectory, the pathway where cancer is evolving, to ensure that it doesn't get to that resistant state. This is how we are building our algorithms. It's been more than 10 years. Computer science has progressed dramatically. As you know, everyone is using large language models this day. We are one step ahead of this game and are developing large multimodal models to tackle this disease, because the information we receive from patients is heterogeneous. It is scans, it is genomic data, it is clinical history. We use all that to prioritize therapeutic options and to maximize the chance of survival. Once again, thank you so very much for having us. We are very excited to be part of the Cure ecosystem. Thank you.
We're excited to have all of you as part of our ecosystem. So next up, we're going to invite Irene Brombell from BioCure.
Good afternoon. I'm thrilled to be here, and I was amazed. I was not expecting to be following a New Zealand company because I'm actually Kiwi, but I've been here for 30 years. So actually, my origin story goes back to New Zealand when I was a 12-year-old kid, and I learned about this amazing scientist called Maria Curie-Skłodowska, or Marie Curie. And she inspired me to devote the rest of my life to pursue science and technology to help people. So fast forward a few years later, I was at J&J and I was at Spark Therapeutics. And there I saw firsthand the tremendous potential of cell and gene therapies to transform patients' lives, where you can literally treat and cure diseases that were previously a lost cause, usually that would lead to death. So that's the fantastic promise and excitement of cell and gene therapy. Unfortunately, I also saw that there'd be a looming challenge coming down the pike, and that's when it comes to the manufacture of these therapies. So the actual process development and manufacturing is extremely complex, and that's because of the molecular complexity of the therapies themselves, as well as the high complexity of the process. And so today, we've got about 20, give or take, FDA-approved gene therapies on the market. Unfortunately, they have multi-million-dollar price tags, which is obviously not sustainable, and it's certainly not equitable. So fortuitously, 2 years ago, I met Richard Bratz from MIT, and he shared my vision for trying to solve this critical problem of cell and gene therapy, harnessing AI. So fortunately, Richard happens to be a world leader in AI for biomanufacturing. So we created BioCurie, as well as developing a new technology, mechanistic AI, that leverages decades of knowledge in biology, chemistry, and physics, and then combines that with AI to really transform that process from today's hit or miss labor-intensive exercise to something that's very intelligent. We can do millions and millions of simulations to aspire to right first-time production of each cell and gene therapy. So our goal is to really transform cell and gene therapies in order to make them faster, safer, and affordable for all patients, and really so that patients everywhere can afford their therapies regardless of circumstance. I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of the Cure and to join this amazing ecosystem, and especially because we all share the same vision of really helping patients around the world and improving patient equity for all. So thank you so much, and this is great for patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. And, Marie Curie, Irene, BioCurie, I mean, we love women in science. So it's great to see a woman in science up here. So thank you. Thank you for that. It's great. And I think next up we have Collog Cares. So come on up.
Thank you so much. Do we have to change our name to Collog Cures? Given the well, thank you once again. Thanks for having us. I'm really, really honored to be here. Let me start with a story, as I like to do. You're the kind of person who will accomplish anything he puts his mind to. That's how my story begins. Incidentally, it started when I was 12 years old. My aunt, I call her my favorite aunt just to piss off all my other aunts. But she was actually my godmother. She was my closest aunt. She suddenly developed kidney failure when I was about 12 years old. And that summer, I went with her every single time she went to her dialysis sessions, which was 3 times a week, almost every other day. And there will be a big build up to it because you had to go to bed really early the night before, prepare everything, and then drive over to the hospital, have the dialysis session. After the dialysis session, she'll be extremely sick. The next day, she'll be in good spirits up until around the evening where you can almost just see her battery starting to go down again. My aunt did this for a few months, and then she passed away. But there was one fateful day when we're in the hospital for the dialysis sessions, and I told her, I'm going to build a hospital like this one day. And that's when she made that statement, you're the kind of person who would accomplish anything he puts his heart to. Unfortunately, I went to medical school and realized I hated hospitals. I'm sorry, Aunt Helen. But one thing that really struck out to me was that we're not doing enough to prevent these conditions, right? And just for the interest of time, let me read off some numbers for you. In this country, kidney disease costs $500 billion. African Americans have a 5 times higher risk. Black Americans have a 5 times higher risk than Caucasians for developing kidney failure. 35% of the people on dialysis going through what my aunt went through in this country are Black Americans. More than 50% of people who end up in kidney failure and dialysis crash into dialysis. This is a condition that develops over 2 decades. And so after a while, I said, why don't we do something about this? We have the technology, potentially. Why don't we work towards building that out for kidney disease management, and especially targeting the people who need this, which are people of color in this country? And that's what Color Cares was built to do. So once again, thank you so much. I know my aunt is looking down, very proud of me, very proud of us, and grateful to the Cures team. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure your aunt is looking down, from above and very, very proud of you and your entire family. So thank you for being a finalist. I think next up we have Deep Echo. So come on up.
Thank you so much, Seema. Thanks, everyone. Congrats to the other startups. So I'm Sad. I'm a radiologist. I'm also the co-founder and chief medical officer of Deep Echo. So we started the company about 3.5 years ago. And at that time, I was a radiology resident. I was working in a public hospital in Casablanca, Morocco. And I used to care for pregnant patients. We used to perform scans for them, CT scans in cases of complications after C-sections. And I witnessed firsthand tragedies. So cases of maternal mortalities, which could have been avoided if we had the appropriate information, if we had access to a prior ultrasound in the pregnancy. So my co-founder and I, we started looking at the numbers. We started looking at the maternal mortality numbers, both in the global south and the global north. So obviously, in a way, and it's sad to say, but in the global south, they're absolutely terrible, 100 times what they are in Western Europe. But what we witnessed was that there was an outlier, the USA. So at the time, I think when we saw the numbers, the maternal mortality rates were 10 times what they are in Western Europe. And they kept on growing. Between 2020 and 2021, there was a sharp increase of 40% in maternal mortality right here in the US, according to the CDC. So there's an obvious problem, right? There's a potential solution, fetal ultrasound. It's cheap, at least the hardware is cheap, it's affordable. But the problem with fetal ultrasound, even though it reduces maternal mortality by up to 6%, is that it does not scale, simply because you cannot teach 100 radiologists or obstetricians in a matter of weeks. But what can scale is AI. You can train hundreds of models in a matter of days. So that's what we did. We trained our own AI models. We automated a third of the fetal ultrasound examination. We performed a prospective clinical study. We showed that our models are at least as reliable as expert sonographers with more than 10 years of experience and are currently in the process of filing for a 510K pre-market approval with the FDA. But we want to go beyond that. We want to target the core of this increase in maternal mortality, namely diseases such as preeclampsia and postpartum hemorrhage. But we can't do that alone. We need an ecosystem. We need hospitals. We need passionate physicians and scientists who will help us as we tackle one of the greatest challenges in healthcare. And more importantly, what we want to do and why we are so happy to be here today is to innovate and bring actual solutions to maternal care, solutions that we think it deserves and needs. Anyhow, thank you so much. Very happy to be here. And congrats to the other winners.
So, Saad, I have to say, one of the things that actually inspired us in all of your work and everybody's work, but this particular thing, not only in Casablanca, but right here in New York City, maternal mortality is one of the biggest issues, especially in Black women. It's worse than even in the global South. And so this is a big thing. And so we're happy that you're coming here. And there's another ecosystem out there. They're all working on this issue. So great to have you here as well. So next up we have, and I think our chief guest, Professor Clinton, is also a big proponent of, maternal health, and so perfect. All right, our next presenter is Every Cure. Come on up, Grant.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grant Mitchell. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Every Cure, and we are an AI-driven drug discovery company focused on unlocking the life-saving potential of existing FDA-approved drugs to treat every disease that they possibly can. So we use AI to find new uses for existing medicines. And a lot like my fellow finalists here, it's a very personal story for me as well. Over 10 years ago, my best friend and roommate in medical school developed a rare and deadly disease that resulted in him nearly dying 5 times. And he was given, at the time when we were in med school together, just about 2 to 3 years to live, and there were no approved treatments. And so with the time frame we had, we didn't have 10 years, we didn't have $1 billion to develop a new drug. All we could do is hope we could understand the disease in his body and then try existing drugs on him to see if we could get something to work. Lo and behold, we found a drug. It was called sirolimus. It was for kidney rejection failure. And it was actually ultimately worked for him in his disease called Castleman disease. And it's been, as of 1 month ago, it was 10 years since he's been in remission. So this life-saving moment really allowed us to understand both the problem and the opportunity of drug repurposing. So I'll give you a little bit of the numbers here. There's, believe it or not, only 3,000 FDA-approved drugs, just 3,000 precious molecules of life-saving material that we have. And there's about 12,000 human diseases. 9,000 of those diseases don't have a single FDA-approved treatment. And so that is what Every Cure exists to do. That's what we're taking the responsibility for, is to make that connection, build that matrix between all drugs and all disease. We're calling it the pharmacophenome. And we're using artificial intelligence to do it. It is really one of the most perfect applications of artificial intelligence because it allows us to combine all of these different databases and data sets that have been accumulated over time. So we have, all the omics. We have the ability to use large language models to digest all of medical literature. That was not possible just a few years ago. We can digest that medical literature and we can output into what John was talking about, into a knowledge graph, a biomedical knowledge graph that allows us to understand the relationships between all of these biomedical concepts. And so we're actually giving that to the world, this knowledge graph that we're building. We want to give it to researchers. We want to give it to academics. We want to give it to patients that they can do their own research like we did. And we're also mining it for all the connections between drug and disease, giving a normalized score from 0 to 1 of every single possibility. 3,000 drugs, 12,000 diseases, 36 million possibilities. You can zoom in on your corner of the heat map that interests you the most. And so we don't stop there. We actually zoom in where we think is going to be the highest patient impact. And we take that into clinical trials and we make sure that we prove out these AI predictions in the clinic so they can actually reach patients. And we can't do that alone. We're a nonprofit, we're non-competitive, we're collaborative. That's why it's an amazing thing for us to be here at the Cure building, to be a part of this ecosystem. It's already paid dividends. I've already met 3 different organizations today that want to collaborate with, that are generating data that's used for this kind of analysis. And we're just thrilled to be a part of it. And I'll say one last thing, which is that it's amazing that Chelsea Clinton is here today to help give out this award. About 3 years ago to the day, her father called my co-founder, David Fagenbaum, and said, "This is amazing." Dave wrote a book about his experience finding his own cure. And he said, "You're telling me that there are drugs sitting at the pharmacy that can save lives right now? We need to get behind this." And really it was Chelsea's family and her father that gave us the courage to pursue such an audacious and ambitious idea. And so thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Seema. We are thrilled to be part of this community, and we're ready to help some patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. It's so wonderful to have you here as part of the ecosystem. All right, next up we have Oatmeal Health. Okay, come on up, Yuri.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you, everyone here to Cure. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Yuri Ahuja. I am a physician, a machine learning scientist, and Chief Technology Officer of Oatmeal Health. Oatmeal Health's mission is to offer end-to-end lung cancer screener programs to federally qualified health centers to take care of the neediest 10 to 20% of Americans. First of all, why do we screen for lung cancer? Screening has been shown to quote-unquote stage shift lung cancer when identified from stage 4 to stage 1. When identified at stage 4, when lung cancer is often first symptomatic, it is incurable. And 5-year mortality is over 90%. Caught at stage 1A or stage 1A or stage 1B, we can cure over 90%. So this is a huge opportunity. The government has recognized this and has taken issue with the fact that our national screening rate is under 10%. And for federally qualified health centers that take care of the neediest Americans is under 5%. This is a huge opportunity. CMS has recently, in the last couple of years, addressed this problem by tying pay-for-performance metrics to lung cancer screening. This essentially means that clinics are liable to lose federal funding if they don't meet a certain screening threshold. And while the decision was made with the correct heart, it does have the unintended side effect of potentially decreasing funding for these clinics that need it most. And the reason for this is the problem isn't one of the healthcare community not caring or not wanting to screen. The problem is multifaceted. It is one of health literacy and one where the supply of primary care services just does not meet demand. And that problem is just getting worse throughout the country. This is the problem that we're trying to solve at Oatmeal Health. And we're doing that by intelligently marrying AI with clinical services. Our solution is multifaceted, trying to address this very broad problem. One, we ingest data, electronic health record data from our clients at these community health centers, and we identify the patients who are at highest risk for lung cancer, who are likely to meet screening criteria, so their scans will be covered by federal subsidies. We're then developing large language model-based solutions to optimize an educational approach that's culturally competent, that teach patients why screening is so important, which is often a very meaningful barrier to why patients don't ultimately pursue this life-saving intervention. And finally, we provide clinical services on the ground to make sure that patients actually can get to the scanner and then use AI tools to risk stratify their scans for follow-up decisions and clinical decision support. So, lofty problem, and we're very grateful to Cure to being with us on this journey. So thank you all. It's an honor to be here again.
Okay, and finally, we have Oben Health. Peter.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you all of you for being here today. My name is Peter Jongwe. I'm the founder of Oben. And at Oben, our mission, and I'll say our vision is simple. Simple but big. We want to bring care to where people feel trust, where they feel safe, and we're building the technology to do that. But why is this important? A couple years ago, and it's almost going to be 2 years now, my brother, at the age of 36, passed away from uncontrolled hypertension in his sleep. Every time I think about that is the question I ask myself, or we should ask ourselves, is how can someone so young pass away from something that's so preventable? Leaving behind a legacy of 2 girls and a wife. that haunts me. And what haunts me is his story is not unique. A lot of my fellow finalists have talked about this, and we talked about health equity, and just some numbers to just give some context to that. We know Black and Brown Americans are 32% more likely to die from cardiovascular disease. Over 44% have insufficient access to primary care. I can keep going with the numbers, but the thing that really, really gets me is I do believe my brother had gotten preventative screening, he'll still be alive. And that's our mission at Oben. Is how can we solve this problem? And it was also about having conversations with health systems that want to do this work. They want to go in the community and meet people where they are, but they struggle with this. It's how do we pay community health workers? How do we go into the spaces? How do we get the data back into our systems? What does the technology look like? Those are all the questions we're seeing, and over 75% of the health systems we talked to kept mentioning those issues with them. And so our solution was, we want to bring care to where people are. And we're starting by building the technology stack to deliver care in barbershops and salons. And why barbershops? These are the cultural hubs of a community. I mean, I remember going as a kid, you didn't even go for a cut. You went to have a conversation about if LeBron was better than Kobe. It was just where your uncles gathered. It was just a place for fun. It's a place where people felt safe. And just beyond just the anecdotes, there are studies that have shown barbershops are 64% more effective than other standards of care, whether it's in person or doing virtual at home care. These are the places where this is happening. And so I want to use my background as a software engineer, and I paired with my co-founder, who was one of the leading did one of the leading studies of the barbershop model, and we built the Oben platform to deliver care in these places. We're just getting started. We're in the Bay Area right now with over 17 barbershops. We're already working and seeing patients where over 60% of our patients haven't had their blood pressure screened in over 2 years. Just some numbers. I know we're going to improve lives and we're going to save lives, and I'm excited about the opportunity to work with Cure to do this. And as they say, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So thank you all. I appreciate this. And if someone asks, Oben is my brother's name, so I started the company to honor him. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing the story. I think everybody here can see the real red thread here, which is, purpose and personal passion combined with, sort of make it happen kind of attitude is what attracted us to, all of the work that you do, not to mention the AI and the powerful technology that you bring to bear on these problems. And then, yes, you're right. If you can make it in New York City, you can make it everywhere. And that's why we wanted to open our doors to you, because we believe that you all are going to be curing diseases. So thank you so much. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Chelsea Clinton. And before I welcome her up to the stage, I just want to tell you our relationship that we established last year with the Clinton Global Initiative. We've been talking about equity all evening long, and this notion of equity and equitable access is what attracted us to the Clinton Global Initiative and the work that it's doing. And so we're such mission-aligned organizations. And, not only Chelsea's father, who has, brought about, he was one of the biggest supporters of the Human Genome Project. And I was at the White House when we announced the Human Genome Project with your father and Mr. Tony Blair there. And then afterwards, Chelsea's mother, who's a gutsy woman, and as is Chelsea, their book, you have to read their book, Gutsy Women. And last year, we established this partnership, and then afterwards, we've been doing some work together. But most recently, in December, I had the chance to be at the COP meeting in Dubai. And Chelsea and I had a chance to visit this clinic, women's health clinic. And we had a wonderful day there, and it was about women's health. And just seeing Chelsea's passion, seeing her advocacy, it's just somebody who I greatly admire. And so it's really a pleasure to have you here, Chelsea. Come on up.
Oh, goodness. Gosh, I guess I wore 2 high heels today. Really, Seema, it's just our enormous, thank you, honor to partner with Cure. I want to thank Deerfield and everyone who quite literally has brought us into this beautiful space. I'm quite thrilled as an adopted New Yorker that we are here in New York City. I've lived in New York longer than I've lived anywhere else. And so I'm fiercely proud that Cure will continue to help kind of catalyze, incubate, and scale innovations that will help all of us, but particularly New Yorkers. I also just want to say how thankful we are at the Clinton Foundation to be in partnership with people with whom we clearly share such a deep kind of ethos and commitment to equity at scale. The genesis of the Clinton Foundation was my father kind of thinking about what he could do as he was getting ready to leave office to continue to deploy his rather capacious brain and heart and ecosystem. And he first focused on the great equity crisis, more than 2 decades ago, that if you lived here in the United States and you were HIV positive, you probably had access to antiretroviral drugs that were enabling you, hopefully, to lead a healthy, long life. And if you lived in the global South, that was probably not true. At the dawn of the millennium, fewer than 10,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa, is just one example, were on antiretrovirals, even though at the time more than 30 million people were living with AIDS. So I'm very proud today that there are close to 30 million people in the global South, the vast majority of people who are HIV positive, who are on antiretroviral medicines, the vast majority of whom access them through agreements that the Clinton Foundation helped negotiate. So it was $10,000 per person per year. In 2001 is now less than $60 per person per year. And we've taken that model into many different kind of health commodities around the world, and increasingly kind of thinking about what more we can do here in the United States. So one of the areas where we've tried to make a big difference is kind of on the price and affordability and access of Narcan and naloxone and kind of other life-saving treatments to help save a life for someone who's suffering an opioid overdose. There are thousands of partners, from libraries to McDonald's franchises to police departments to community colleges to high schools who now have Narcan available through agreements that we help negotiate. And yet we know we need to be doing even more here at home. And so basically that's my invitation for us into all the work you're already doing. How can we try to help the finalists and the winners kind of think through kind of what you're doing, whether here in New York City, and Seema was kind enough to mention our work on maternal health, but also really at a national level and at a global one. We are incredibly thankful for the partnership with Cure, partly because we're now in your ecosystem. So if you think that anything that we kind of have done or could do could be useful to your work, please ask. We're also a block away. So proximity, hopefully, is kind of just an underscore and an emphasis on the invitation. So really, Seema, thank you so much for bringing us into this work. We're really proud to be your partner, and we hope to be your partners moving forward. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go. Okay, I'm ready. Yeah, ready. Okay. So first up, let's start with Kellogg Cares. Come on up and receive the award. Congratulations. All right, next up we have Oatmeal Health. Please come on up, Yuri. All right, next up, who do we have? Here we go. Okay, this is heavy, so watch. Yes, I'm ready. Irene, come on up. All right, Deep Echo, come on up. Saad. All right, Grant Every Cure. Okay, and then we have Oben, Peter. Come on up. And I think, we have one of our other finalists and winners are not here today, so we are going to actually just hold this for Alex, who's in New Zealand. As if you were standing with me. Yes, as if you were standing. The photo catches photo. We saw standing a whole lot. That's the one thing we didn't get right today. Great. Thank you. You're so nice. This was great. So I want to invite up to the stage Nolan Townsend. So Nolan is a CEO of LEXEO Therapeutics, which is a gene therapy company working on Alzheimer's disease right here in this building. They're doing just some phenomenal work. And Nolan was one of the earliest residents of this ecosystem in this building. So he also was a member of our advisory board. So I want to welcome him up to say a few words as well about what it's like to be part of this ecosystem. Come on up.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to see everyone. It's an exciting project and initiative that Cure is leading related to some of the new companies that are forming. I could think back to the earliest days of LEXEO. I was the first employee in the company, helped get the concept off the ground with our scientific founder. But it's a very lonely job doing that. I was one person sitting alone at another life sciences ecosystem that's nearby. But I think what helps is having other entrepreneurs around you, other people that are working on some of the same challenges, whether it's with your preclinical pipeline, whether it's with raising capital, or whatever the other challenges may be. So I think the benefit of an ecosystem is even greater the earlier the company is in its development. The benefit of the resources, the network, and also just the other people that are working on similar challenges right alongside you. So, we're a company that grew out of a New York academic institution into a New York life sciences ecosystem. We expanded into this life science ecosystem. So we're really a New York-based story. So I have a lot of experience that's relevant for the team here. But the most important thing I would say is that the idea of an ecosystem is to help fuel innovation and growth in terms of connecting people, connecting organizations together. And I think there's nothing more important for new companies to focus on than that. So I think that the opportunity for a number of the companies that will be playing a role in the Cure building will be substantial and will be meaningful for their growth and development in the future. So thank you everyone for having me say a few words here. I really appreciate some of the work that a lot of the companies are doing, including some that are focused in the gene therapy field. And we look forward to seeing the success of the companies as they move along here. So thank you, Seema, for having me. Thank you.
So one last word I wanted to mention. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here, for all of your engagement. Anybody who sets foot in this building, we consider you to be part of our ecosystem and a curee, if you will. That means you're forever part of Cure and you're forever part of the mission, which is to cure, period. And I also want to mention that we had finalists and we had winners. And the advisory board struggled a lot because we wanted everybody to be here, part of the ecosystem. So I just want to say that the finalists also are getting a form of a package from Cure, which will make them part of the ecosystem. And I just wanted to acknowledge that is also the case. So we consider all of you to be here, part of our ecosystem. You'll be here for a year, quote unquote, as residents, but you're going to be in our hearts and here in this ecosystem forever. So thank you all. Congratulations. And we're going to go have a glass of wine and toast.